You think buying a 3-bed, 2-bath rental is a guaranteed cash cow, don't you? Well, let me tell you, the dream of passive income can turn into a nightmare faster than you can say, surprise foundation repair. And right now, thousands of wannabe landlords are discovering that their spreadsheet fantasies don't match the brutal reality of actual tenant calls at 2 a.m. Here's the thing everyone overlooks. Net operating income isn't just rent minus mortgage. It's rent minus vacancy, minus repairs, minus property management, minus insurance, minus taxes, minus that thing you forgot about until it broke, and suddenly your $2,500 monthly rent becomes $800 of actual NOI if you're lucky. So what's realistic? In most mid-tier American markets, a typical 3-bed, 2-bath rental might pull in $2,000 to $3,000 monthly in gross rent. But after you subtract 10% for vacancy, another 10 to 15% for maintenance, 8 to 12% for property management if you're smart enough not to do it yourself, plus property taxes and insurance, you're looking at a net operating income somewhere between 40 to 60% of that gross rent. Let's get mathematical about this. If your property generates $30,000 in annual rent, you might see $12,000 to $18,000 in NOI. That's your real number before debt service. But here's where the amateurs get crushed. They forget that NOI doesn't include your mortgage payment, and that's often another $12,000 to $15,000 annually, leaving you with maybe $3,000 to $6,000 in actual cash flow per year, which is $250 to $500 a month. Remember when everyone said real estate was passive income? That was before you spent 6 weekends fixing toilets, fielding calls about weird smells, and chasing down rent from tenants who suddenly have 10 different emergencies every first of the month. The psychological toll of being a landlord, the constant low-grade anxiety of property ownership never shows up in the pro forma, but it absolutely tanks the quality of those returns when you factor in your time and sanity. But wait, let's contrast that with the headlines from 2019 through 2021. Back then, everyone and their cousin was a real estate guru. Airbnb was gonna make you rich, appreciation was infinite, and rent growth was double-digit across the board. Fast forward to today, and suddenly interest rates quintupled, insurance doubled or tripled in many markets. And those appreciation assumptions look laughable, yet somehow the real estate never loses crowd went awfully quiet. Here's what the smart money knows. Real estate cycles are as predictable as the seasons, just slower. Every 10 to 15 years, we see a massive run-up, then a correction, then a grinding recovery, then another boom, and right now, we're in that awkward phase where the easy money has been made and the next opportunity hasn't quite revealed itself. The housing market peaked, stumbled, and now sits in this weird purgatory where sellers want 2021 prices and buyers want 2012 deals, leaving actual cash flow, investors stuck analyzing properties that barely pencil. You probably heard people say cash flow is dead or you can't find good deals anymore. That's partially true and partially lazy, because while cap rates compressed and prices exploded, plenty of investors are still finding 7 to 10% cash-on-cash returns in secondary markets by focusing on fundamentals instead of hype. The difference is they're buying boring stuff in boring places, with boring, reliable tenants, not trying to flip condos in Miami or speculate on Airbnbs in Nashville. Let's talk misconceptions head on. The biggest lie is that you need 20% down and perfect credit to start. Reality check. You can get into investment properties with as little as 15% down on conventional loans, or even 3.5% with house hacking and FHA loan if you're willing to live in one unit. The barrier isn't capital, it's knowledge, patience, and willingness to start small instead of swinging for home runs. Here's the boring truth nobody wants to hear. Consistent, moderate returns beat spectacular wins every single time. If you can reliably generate 6 to 8% cash-on-cash returns plus 3 to 4% appreciation, you're absolutely crushing it over a 20-year period. But that requires buying right, managing well, and not panicking when things get choppy. The investors who win are the ones who show up, do the work, and don't get emotional when the market doesn't cooperate for a few years. Historical lesson time. Every major real estate downturn 1990, 2008, even 2023's weird correction was followed by a recovery that rewarded patient capital. The people who bought in 2009 through 2011, when everyone said real estate was dead forever, are now sitting on properties that tripled in value and cash flow beautifully. The lesson isn't buy the dip, it's have a system, stick to it, and don't try to time the market. So what's the actual playbook here? Run your numbers conservatively. Assume 50% of gross rent goes to operating expenses. If you want to be safe, make sure your property cash flows at least $200 per month after everything, including debt service, so you have a cushion for the inevitable surprises. Focus on decent neighborhoods with solid rental demand, not war zones or luxury markets, because the middle is where consistency lives. Position sizing matters more than you think. Don't bet the farm on one property. Your first deal should be small enough that if everything goes wrong, it's a learning experience, not a bankruptcy. As you build experience and capital, you can scale up, but the graveyard is full of investors who leveraged everything on their first can't-miss deal and discovered that everything absolutely can miss. Community wisdom says the real money in real estate isn't the monthly check, it's the forced savings through mortgage paydown, the tax benefits through depreciation, and the long-term appreciation that happens while you sleep. Your 3-bed, 2-bath rental might only cash flow $400 a month, but if it's also building $300 in equity, saving you $200 in taxes, and appreciating $150 monthly on average, suddenly you're at $1,000 a month in total return. That's the math the cash flow or bust crowd misses. Let me be crystal clear about risk. Real estate is not passive, it's not guaranteed, and it will humble you repeatedly if you're not prepared. Every successful landlord has a horror story about the tenant from hell, the surprise $50,000 foundation issue, or the market that tanked right after they bought. The question isn't whether bad things will happen, it's whether you're capitalized and prepared enough to survive them. Here's the philosophical truth bomb. Discipline beats conviction. Every single time, the investor who buys decent deals consistently will crush the investor who waits for the perfect opportunity that never comes. Your NOI might be lower than you dreamed, your appreciation might be slower than you hoped, but if you show up for a decade with a solid process, you'll build wealth anyway. That's not sexy, it's not viral, but it's real. The current market is weird, I'll give you that. Interest rates are still elevated, prices haven't corrected as much as math says they should, and inventory is tight in most markets. But weird doesn't mean bad, it just means the easy button isn't available, and you actually have to underwrite deals properly instead of relying on appreciation to bail out bad purchases. I'm personally comfortable with any outcome here. If prices drop, I'll buy more at better cash flow numbers. If they stay flat or rise slowly, my existing properties keep chugging along, building equity and throwing off income. The only losing move is sitting on the sidelines forever, waiting for perfect conditions that will never arrive. Because the best time to start was 5 years ago, and the second best time is today. Bottom line on that 3-bed, 2-bath rental, expect $8,000 to $12,000 in annual NOI in most markets, which translates to maybe $3,000 to $6,000 in actual cash flow after debt service if you're buying at today's prices with today's rates. Not life-changing money on one property, but the foundation of a portfolio that could be life-changing over time. The math is boring, the process is slow, but the compounding is real, and that's ultimately what separates real investors from speculative gamblers. Check out www.growthsense.com, our real estate directory, where investors can find investment properties to analyze and sellers can list their investment properties for serious buyers.